Hello, cruel, cruel world. My name is Dr. Shaham Das. I'm a consultant forensic psychiatrist. I assess mentally disordered offenders for a living so that you don't have to. You can call me the ominous Shahamanist. This video is 5 myths about narcissists. And even within this video, I'm going to also give you some tips of how to deal with a narcissist and tell you what it's like to be friends with a narcissist. How can you tell if that's that kind of relationship? So I assess mentally disordered offenders. I'm an expert witness. I give evidence in criminal cases. Narcissistic personality disorder is not a common diagnosis simply because it doesn't generally lead to violence in my line of work. But psychopathy is very much common and there's a big overlap. I'm not going to go into the differences and the similarities. I've done other videos on it. Go check out the links on the comments section. Okay, so very, very briefly, what is a narcissist? You probably know this. A narcissist is a person with a grandiose, inflated sense of self. They're constantly looking for praise. They get really offended very easily by criticism. They're selfish. They lack empathy. They don't really care about you. And as we both know, this perfectly describes your ex-boyfriend. Okay, let's get straight into it. Myth number 1. All narcissists are outgoing and confident. So I know that people assume that narcissists are the life and soul food of the after party, but in reality, whilst some or even most narcissists are charismatic and confident, it's not universal. Others might be more withdrawn, they might have low self-esteem, they might mask their grandiose persona, and they might not necessarily enjoy being the centre of attention. They might be more reserved. They'll still seek validation, but they'll do it in a different way. And there is a term for this type of narcissist. Can you tell me what it is, Psych for Soul guys and girls? What is it? I didn't catch that. Yes, that's right. Covert narcissism. So people who are covert narcissists, they still have self-esteem issues and they still have this need for admiration, but they do it in a more manipulative and subtle way, such as passive-aggressive behaviour, giving you a guilt trip, playing the victim card is a big one, so they get the centre, they still gain attention, but it's by controlling others rather than be like, hey, look at me. So covert narcissism also has different names like vulnerable narcissism or closet narcissism. I quite like the term covert narcissism because it sounds a bit like an oxymoron to me, you know, like deafening silence or civil war or deodorant using hippie or peaceful protest or bittersweet. Is it bittersweet or was that sweet and sour? Or was it sweet and salty? Whichever one doesn't involve chicken or popcorn. Anyway, moving on. Myth number 2 about narcissists. Narcissists are incapable of change or growth. So the reality is, although it's very challenging, it is possible in theory for a narcissist to change. Using therapy and self-reflection can lead to some improvement with their behaviour, some self-awareness. So they're not going to magically do a 180, but they might it might take the edge off or the intensities off some of their selfishness. However, and this is the important bit, there has to be some insight, some willingness to change. So narcissistic personality issues can be improved by using the services of a the rapist. Okay. Oh, psychotherapist. There are several forms of therapy that can be helpful, including cognitive behavioral therapy. So that helps individuals identify and change negative thought patterns and behaviors and selfishness. Then there's schema therapy. Don't know if you've heard that term. So in psychology, a schema refers to a mental framework that helps us organize and process and interpret the information from the world around us. And it's usually related to personal experiences from childhood. So for example, if you come from a horrific background and your peers and your friends and your family bully you, then you have this like paranoid schema that the world is out to get you. So, and schema therapy is about identifying, going back to your childhood, identifying what those negative schemas are and then trying to correct them with evidence from today. So the word schema is not to be confused with the word schemy, which is what Scottish people call chavs. And of course there's medication, so there's anti-narcissist medication, 10 milligrams, 3 times a day, call me in the morning. Only kidding. Obviously, medications doesn't address core personality traits. And even though I'm a psychiatrist, I generally don't like to prescribe medication where I don't think that it'll necessarily help Unless, of course, you're a high-level drug rep and you're willing to take me to Alton Towers, so Mr. Pfizer or Mr. Johnson or the other Mr. Johnson, if you're listening to this, I'm willing to throw away all my morals and I'll prescribe whatever you want. Please give me that all-included, expenses-paid trip. No, I'm kidding, but medication can help in some forms of narcissism, but not to actually treat the narcissism. It's to help other issues like antidepressants, anxiolytics, which is a posh way of saying anti-anxiety medication. Myth number 3 about narcissists: you personally can fix them or you can change them. In reality, like, I'm not talking about therapy, I'm talking about a usual sort of friendship or relationship. Trying to change a narcissist rarely works. As the saying goes, a tiger never changes its spots. So realistically, the best thing that you can do if you're friends with a narcissist or in a relationship or even a relative is limit their problematic behavior. How do you do that? Glad you asked. Here are 4 tips of how to deal with a narcissist. Tip number 1, dealing with a narcissist, is set and enforce boundaries. So if they're being a bit too personal, if they're up in your grill, if they're draining too much of your time, if they're not leaving your house, you've got to enforce boundaries and tell them to leave. Tip number 2 of dealing with a narcissist: avoid engaging in arguments. Just like arguing with a toilet brush, arguing with a narcissist is often futile. So even though it might feel good to kind of get things off your chest and you might want to have the last word, it's not going to be a logical argument. Narcissists are very unlikely, almost by definition, to see your perspective or to acknowledge that they've been wrong. Instead, focus on calmly and factually communicating your needs and your boundaries, and if it's not going anywhere, just leave the conversation. Number 3 tip on how to deal with narcissists is limit your exposure to them. So if possible, try and limit their exposure, especially if their behavior is causing you stress or impacting your mental health. If it's a friend of yours, for example, and they're not being a good friend, just, back off for a bit or even think about ending the relationship. Sounds pretty intense, but a man's got to do what a man's got to do. Or a woman, don't cancel me. Tip number 4 of how to deal with a narcissist, kind of connected to that, is prioritize your own mental and emotional well-being. You are beautiful, okay? You are special. You are unique. Focus on you. Obviously, I don't mean you. I mean everyone else watching the video, but you get the point. Okay, moving on. Myth number 4 about narcissists is they know that they have a problem. In reality, typically narcissists are not self-aware and they blame other people for their problems. So they often resist acknowledging any wrongdoing. Insight is what I'm talking about. They lack insight, and that makes it difficult to address the issue directly, as I was saying. Okay, I think it's time for a famous quote about narcissism. I think it was Socrates that said, "I love myself, I want you to love me. When I feel down, I want you above me. I search myself, I want you to find me. I forget myself, I want you to remind me. I don't want anybody else. When I think about you, I touch my..." What? You do what, Socrates? Me Too movement? Nah, it's not a good time. Easy. As well as narcissists being up themselves and grandiose and having this kind of inflated sense of self-worth, they often subconsciously, all of that is conscious, they often subconsciously twist reality to suit their thought patterns. So basically what I'm saying is, whatever you do, it's always your fault, not their fault. So if you say to them that they're attention-seeking and selfish, they will say you're just a bit boring. If you say to them that you don't have empathy towards my problems, they'll just say you're always complaining about shit. If you say they always seek praise, they'll say, yeah, but, people think I'm awesome. Just as an aside, my Psych for guys and gals, I have actually been accused of being a narcissist in YouTube comments. Apparently I'm a bit arrogant. Apparently I'm a bit of a show-off. Just for absolute clarity, on the record, right? I'm not a narcissist. I just happen to be highly intelligent, very good looking, and better at Scrabble than you. As Socrates once said, don't hate the player, hate the shame. Okay, so before we go on to our 5th and final point, my Psych for guys, please, can you tell me your experience of knowing a narcissist, being in a relationship, whether it's romantic, friendship, maybe a family member that you can't get away from? How did you know they're a narcissist? How did it affect your relationship? Tell me what it is like. Let me know in the comment section below. Okay, number 5 myth about being a narcissist is that it's easy to tell if you're friends with a narcissist. In reality, narcissists can be very adept at charm and they can be very manipulative, which makes it hard for you to identify initially. And it might take a while, sometimes even months, to realise that somebody is a narcissist. So not too dissimilar to psychopaths, actually. They're very good at hiding the fact they're psychopaths. See my other videos about narcissism and psychopathy. I'll put the links in the section. Always be plugging. So what I'm saying is their targets, their tactics can be subtle and they can be based on the individual. Okay, that segues perfectly into my next topic, which is, what is it like to be friends with a narcissist? How can you tell? Before I get into that, I just want to introduce you to this channel. This is Smite for Small Minds. I do a smorgasbord of videos related to mental illness and offending and the crossover betwixt the two. I do like 5 tips on dealing with stalkings, 5 myths about murderers, 5 myths about female prisons. I've done the mental health on Dr. Dre, Busta Rhymes. You got to go chickadee, check it out. I implore you to subscribe to this channel. Not only does it help me out immeasurably, but if you subscribe, you'll never get a parking fine ever again, guaranteed, or your money back. Okay, back to the video. I said, what's it like to be friends with a narcissist? So it can be complex and it often leaves the other person feeling drained, feeling confused, even emotionally abused. The reason it's hard is because initially there's often this allure and this idealization. And why is that? It's because, as I said, narcissists can actually be quite charming and they can be charismatic at the beginning of the relationship. And they often are very sort of intense and they shower their new friends with compliments. They shower them with flattery, attention. They make that person feel special and valued. So this creates a sense of idealization where the friend, your friend, you see them as this highly positive light. And because you love certain aspects of the way they make you feel, you overlook some potential cracks in the relationship. You overlook potential red flags and you just think, yeah, she's a bit kind of up herself, but she's so much fun. And then later what happens, another way of telling that you're friends with a narcissist, is there's this shifting dynamic and manipulation. So as the friendship progressed, the dynamic kind of changes. So the narcissist might become more demanding, might become more controlling. They expect constant praise and validation and admiration and attention, and it becomes more draining. They might resort to subtle manipulation techniques like guilt tripping, playing the victim. They might later start putting you down as their friend so that they feel superior. But the point I'm trying to make is they don't do that initially, so their behavior changes over time. In my view, one of the biggest telltale signs, a red flag that you're friends with a narcissist, is that the relationship becomes one-sided. There's a lack of reciprocity. The primary focus is on the narcissist's needs and desires, the friend's feelings, thoughts, experiences, their thoughts, experiences, and feelings become more important in the conversations in the relationship. You are disregarded, you are downplayed. Basically, it's an emotional roller coaster with boundary violations. The narcissist, another telltale sign is mood. So the narcissist's moods can be unpredictable. You might be getting along fine, and then suddenly there's an outburst of anger, or there's a sudden criticism, or there's passive aggressive behavior. They might violate boundaries, constantly needing your availability, even if it disrupts your life. You need to be there for me. You need to turn up for coffee. I need to tell you about this. So over time, you become drained. Over time, you become unseen. I'm sure when you're listening to this, some of my Psych for Soul guys and gals, you'll recognize these behaviors. As I said, let me know in the section below experiences you've had with narcissists. When I'm kind of saying this out loud, something that immediately came to me is the film Talented Mr. Ripley, 1999. The reason is I'm sure you've seen this film. It stars the main titular character is Tom Ripley, played by Matt Damon, and he becomes enamored with a man called Dickie Greenleaf, a character played by Jude Law. So the reason I'm bringing this up is this is exactly what I'm talking about. So Tom Ripley becomes enamored. He even kind of falls in love with Dickie Greenleaf, and they get on really, really well. And then over time, relatively quickly, I'd say, but fairly unexpectedly, let's say, Dickie Greenleaf kind of gets bored of him really easily, thinks of him as a bit of a parasite. If you've seen the film, you know how it ends or how their relationship ends. I'm not going to tell you, no spoilers alert, but what I'm trying to say is that's a perfect example of a narcissist, of how they use you, emotionally drain you, then get bored of you, then throw you away. I'm sure there's other films that depict narcissists well. I can't think of any at the top of my head. If you know, let me know. My Smite for Soul guys in the section below. Okay, I've rabbited on enough. That's enough of my video. I hope I've helped you understand myths about narcissism, about narcissists. If you've got anything else to say, let me know in the shorts. Have a blessed day. Buy my goddamn book. And do not forget, I love you.